We kick off today's episode of Plaas TV with some complex topics. Who is BioChek and what is adenosine triphosphate? Thomas Struckmeyer and Anné Calitz recently visited Plaas TV to shed some light on this. Then, what are unwanted mutations? Stay tuned as Jason Redding from SA Studbook explains these mutations in more detail. But first, here is the latest agricultural news.
Standard Bank. It can be.
And now for the news. Inanda-based macadamia and banana farmer Tammy Williams has been crowned the 2022 Toyota Kwanalu Young Farmer of the Year. Tammy is the first female Kwanalu Young Farmer of the Year and will go on to represent KwaZulu-Natal in the National Young Farmer of the Year competition later this year. Williams started out as a receptionist at Windermere Estate Farm 12 years ago. She was later promoted to manage a section of the banana production operation. Williams took over the production and management of several banana farms totaling 120 hectares. In 2013, she expanded into macadamia production and since then has grown the macadamia operation to 150 hectares. Die pas afgelope Nampo Kaap in Bredasdorp het 'n rekordgetal van 32.640 besoekers aangeteken. Die Oeverberg Jeugskou was veral 'n hoogtepunt met 176 inskrywings en 14 klasse. Die Merino Classic is ook gedurende Nampo Kaap aangebied en het die beste merinos in Suid-Afrika onder een dak gehuisves. Nampo Kaap 2023 word reeds beplan en sal plaasvind 13 tot 16 September by Bredasdorp Park. En die 2022 Toyota SA Nasionale Jong Afslaer van die jaar is Tom Hodgson van KwaZulu-Natal. Die finale ronde van die kompetisie is ook tydens Nampo Kaap aangebied. Tom was die streekswenner van die derde streeksronde wat tydens die Royal Skou aangebied is. Tom wen 'n kontantprys van byna R60.000 om aan Calgary Stampede se internasionale afslaerskompetisie in Kanada deel te neem. Fiso Gadebe het die tweede plek behaal en Vincent Pike was derde. Die beoordelaars was dit eens dat vanjaar se deelnemers uitstekend was. En op daardie hoë noot is dit dan vandag se nuus, maar bly met ons net hierna nog landbounuus. Animal diseases will always be with us, and biosecurity is of utmost importance, and that is what we will be focusing on this morning. And we'll be talking about a biosecurity verification solution with BioChek. With me in studio today, I'd like to welcome Anné Calitz and Thomas Struckmeyer. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thomas, who is BioChek?
Well, thank you for having us. BioChek is a global leader in production animal diagnostics. We do poultry, we do bovine, and we do swine diagnostic solutions around the globe.
And you're also in South Africa, of course.
And we are in South Africa, represented here by Anne today, being the business development manager for South Africa.
Anné, ATP, what is it?
So, Lisa, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, which is an energy molecule that you find in all organic matter. So the more ATP present on a surface, the dirtier we could say that surface is. So it's ideal to use to verify cleanliness. That's part of hygiene and sanitation protocols on a farm.
So how can these tests be used for biosecurity verification?
Those tests can be used, first of all, on spot. So you get an instant result whether or not your measures that you have been taken are actually relevant and do work. So we got an instant information within 10 seconds on the spot, and it's digital, and you can do benchmarking of your results at different stages of the production cycle.
So how does these verification tests or options differ from what is currently available?
They differ mostly in the fact that they're instant. You have microbiology tests that you need to do with labs. That takes time. Other elements would be that it is very cumbersome, and all the auditing programs are more retrospective than anything else. So what we offer and what is different is it is an instant information, an instant result that you get on your farm, on your spot where you need it.
Are these tests done in various places in agriculture?
It's fairly new in agriculture, but the technology is widely used in the food safety environment, and we are opening up a new application supporting the biosecurity measures on farm with primary producers. And this is adding a lot of value, specifically in these days where we have a lot of pressure on biosecurity with the diseases going on, specifically here in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Where have you done research in South Africa, and what are the findings of these studies?
So we did some trials using the VeriSure solution for on pig farms, where we basically tested employees pre and post shower to make sure that the shower procedure was followed correctly. Any products delivered, for example, veterinary medicine, was swabbed to make sure that the disinfection process was followed properly. It can also be very widely used, for example, on vehicles, if you look at the transport of animals, which is a very, very high risk. So some of the findings we had was that it created a lot of awareness on the farms, and that came from all the farmers. They said that the employees were much more aware of the procedures on the farm, how to follow it properly, and also that the way they reacted towards biosecurity changed quite a bit. It also helped the farm managers to manage risks and identified risks that they would not normally identify. For example, someone sneaking in a washing cloth to shower with, or someone using the wrong procedure to wash a pen in. So by making some small changes, it really made a big difference.
Is it easy to use, Anné?
Very easy to use. It's basically a small swab with a snap valve at the top. So you basically just swab the surface, put it back, break the snap valve, let the reagent mix with the ATP, put it in the device, and press run test.
Well, as easy as that. Thomas, Anné, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And shedding some light
Lisa.
on a biosecurity verification option and solution from BioChek.
Syngenta, bringing plant potential to life.
Ja, kom ons kyk 'n bietjie na die goudprys. Want ek weet baie boere is lief om 'n bietjie in goud te belê, maar as ek so na die goudprys kyk, dan raak ek bekommerd, want 'n vriend van my het nou die dag gesê hy hou ook van goud en goudaandele, maar iets pla hom, en ek het onmiddellik gekyk na die weekgrafiek. En toe ek na hierdie weekgrafiek kyk, kom ek dadelik iets agter wat my baie pla. Dadelik sien ek wat 'n dubbelhoogte. Hierdie enetjie se put is so bietjie bo daai lyn, maar dit is nog baie naby genoeg, en dit noem ons 'n ongewone dubbelhoogte. 'n Ongewone dubbelhoogte en 'n gewone dubbelhoogte, tegniese ontleding is altyd 'n waarskuwingsformasie. En dit is heel eenvoudig. Hierdie vlak van 1705 beteken, terwyl die goudprys onder 1705 konsolideer, is hierdie gevaarlike dubbelhoogte in plek. Waarheen kan die prys gaan? Ek vat altyd die top van daai hoogtepunt en ek projekteer hom onder toe, en hier kom eintlik die antwoord. Kan ons glo dat as hierdie dubbelhoogte werklik gaan uitspeel, kan ons die prys sien 1413. So vir die wat goud wil koop, wees versigtig, terwyl, ekskuus, ek het 'n paar in die keel gehad, terwyl die goudprys onder 1705 is die momentum steeds duidelik na onder. So as jy wil goud koop, ek dink dis nie nou die tyd nie, sit so 'n bietjie op jou hande, wag 'n bietjie, en hy moet eers bo 1705 kom, voordat hy my gaan opgewonde maak, sodat ons 'n omdraai kan kry, want hierdie lyn is al 'n lyn wat hier van 2020 die prys beskerm, en as die prys daaronder gaan, maak dit my bekommerd. Wel, soek gerus ons webtuiste www.franseklerk.com vir meer inligting en ons gesels weer.
And now for our discussion with SA stud book on mutations in cattle. And joining me is Jason Redding. Jason, welcome once again.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
What are deleterious or, as you said, unwanted mutations?
Well, unwanted mutations are changes in the DNA. So you've got a normal gene that produces a normal product like a protein or aids in creating some sort of byproduct in any of the biosynthesis of other products. But sometimes there's a little mistake that happens in the DNA, and normally it's just a single nucleotide that changes and it breaks the function of the gene. But the problem is that it hides silently within the herd. So an animal that has one of these broken mutations looks exactly the same as all the other cattle that are present in your herd. And these genes act in a recessive fashion, meaning that in order for you to see an animal that is affected by this mutation, it needs to carry both copies, because the normal copy is overriding the broken copy if it carries only one broken copy.
What unwanted mutations can be tested for, and how do you do that?
Well, with the advancements of technology, especially genomics in the last 10 years, mutations have been identified in cattle populations and are continuously being identified. These mutations are consolidated, so they are accurately identified. We can pick them up across many breeds within the beef cattle sector. And so now, with the advancements of technology, we're currently sitting on the third version of the genomic chip for the beef cattle breeds. And with this version 3, they've put on a lot of these new mutations. So instead of having to test them singularly, like you could test for double muscling by itself, or you could test for Pompey's disease by itself, all of these mutations are now on a genomic SNP chip, and we've been having our own internal auditing process as well as the labs overseas, just to ensure that the mutations that are on the chip are the mutations that are occurring. So we've recently decided to start letting the breeders know we have these mutations and they are available through a genomic service. So I can say there are quite a few, and I'll just cover a few of them. We've got glycogen storage disease. So there are many forms of this disease. There are about 7 different types, but we only report on 3. We report on glycogen storage disease 2, which is also known as Pompey's, and comes from the Brahman breed as well as Brahman-derived composites. You also have glycogen storage disease 5 and 7, and this mutation prevents the animal from storing glycogen in its liver and its muscles, which it then uses as an energy source when it doesn't have feed that is available. We also have crooked tail syndrome, which is quite prevalent in composite breeds, if breeds have come from multiple backgrounds of pure breeds. We have mulefoot, which is also known as syndactylia. That's when the hoof of the cow, the claw, it doesn't have that separation. The claws are actually fused together, which is a problem because now that animal will not be able to walk around properly. We also have mucopolysaccharides, which is a lysosomal storage disease. Basically, the lysosome is like the garbage man of your cell. It removes all the old byproducts and the dead parts of your cell. But now it can't do that. So the animal basically builds up and becomes full of unwanted products, and this has an effect on how the animal will perform. We also have hypotrichosis, which is the loss of hair, and that can be on your eyebrows, on the neck, and on the tail area, and they can also have a tail switch. This one's more prevalent in calves because as the animal ages, certain areas might start growing hair, so you can only really identify it in calves. Then we also have EDS, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is also like glycogen storage disease. There are multiple. There are about 5 of them, and these are a connective tissue disorder. So if the animal carries both copies, the cartilage and your connective tissue that attaches your skin to your muscle and your bones, it doesn't work. So it might also be known as vrotval in the field. And so we're looking at hopefully farmers that have vrotval can send us their samples, and we can identify, yes, it was carrying this mutation and it was caused by that, not by something else. If it is caused by something else, then maybe we can figure out what that was. We also have pseudomyotonia, which is like the animal twitches and is uncontrollable. It can't control its muscles because the muscles are actively firing without the brain signal. And then we have more specific ones like Angus dwarfism, which is quite well known, myoclonus, as well as the maple syrup urine syndrome that occurs within the Hereford and the Shorthorn. And obviously thus the composite breeds derived from those pure breeds.
Jason, but why do we want to know the status of these mutations in cattle production?
Well, that answer I can answer threefold. First of all, we want to see, are these mutations actually segregating within the population? Do they occur? And if they do occur, is there some sort of selection pressure that has been occurring? A good example is double muscling. We know with double muscling that animals that are carriers score a higher visual score because they have a nicer conformation. But if they're a carrier and then they produce an animal that is double muscled, that animal either dies at birth or is not a good animal to have around. The second is we want to identify the true reasons that animals are performing poorly. So a calf might die at 6 months, and the farmer will say, no, it was a bad mother, not enough milk, or the environment was unfavorable. But it might have been a glycogen storage disease or a crooked tail or even the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome with the skierval. So like we want to know what is actually happening to these animals. As well as the main thing is now that the world is becoming a lot more connected, the export and import of genetic material in the form of semen and embryos is becoming a lot more commercially available towards our stud breeders as well as commercial breeders. So in order to test for these, we are ensuring that the genetic material that is coming into the country is free of these mutations. You've heard us use the term clean from these mutations, but we're moving towards free from the mutations. It will still be skoon in Afrikaans, but in English we're moving away from free from these mutations.
Right. Because
the clean sound has like a dirty annotation to it. And especially if you want to export material. Now we have clients in America and South America that want to import more genetic material from our locally derived breeds, and they also just want to ensure that they are not importing genes that have a negative influence on their populations.
Thanks for sharing the information, Jason.
Thank you, Lisa.
Jason Redding from SA Stud Book, sharing some light on unwanted mutation in cattle production.
BKB, die betroubare tuiste van landbou. BKB, the trusted home of agriculture. Elanco, we are driven by our vision of food and companionship enriching life.